Good morning, and welcome to All People's Church, Unitarian Universalist, formerly known as First Jefferson Church. My name is Michael Zepeda, and I'm serving as your co-celebrant in worship today. Having said goodbye to Reverend Annie back in June, we are now several months into our interim period between ministers. Our plans for filling the pulpit during this time include hosting a number of guest speakers, and today we are happy to have ReverendLora Brandis here to preach and lead our service. Laura has filled our pulpit a number of times in the past, but that was pre-COVID. This is her first post-COVID return to us, so we're glad to have her. To let you know a bit more about Laura, she's provided this quick bio. ReverendLora Brandis has served congregations in Utah, Idaho, California, and Texas. She was the settled minister at Horizon UU in Carrollton from 2016 to 2021. Most recently, she has served as the sabbatical minister at First Unitarian Church of Dallas from January until July. Semi-retired, she spends most of her days with twin 11-month-old grandchildren, Rose and James, as their nana/nanny. So Reverend Brandis is also an on-call hospital chaplain for Texas Health out in Frisco. Welcome, Laura. Before we continue with our service, I have a couple of announcements here. I have a pair of announcements. Thank you. This afternoon, after fellowship time in the library, the social justice team is hosting a postcarding party in Coleman Hall. They'll be writing nonpartisan messages to infrequent voters in Ellis County, Texas, and we would love if you would join us as we UU the vote. Also, our board has approved the formation of what is that? Okay, the formation of a communications committee to manage church social media and advertising. So if you are interested in joining this team, please check with Rosalind Hunter right over there. Thank you, Rosalind. She's our vice president, I believe. We will now enter into a spirit of community and worship with our musical prelude.
Come into this circle of trust and let community heal your soul. come into this sacred space and open your heart. Come into this holy time and listen for a healing word. Allow wisdom to teach us when we are ready to trust. Allow experience to teach us whom we can trust. Allow balance to teach us the middle way between safety and vulnerability. Come into this circle of trust, this sacred space, this holy time, prepared to live from an all-encompassing love that knows no bounds. Come, let us worship together. And if you will please rise in body or in spirit as we light the chalice and remain standing for the opening hymn and the affirmation. We begin by lighting the chalice, symbol of our free faith, opening ourselves to trust, acknowledging this sacred space and this religion of free thought and the covenant, the promise of how we are together. Please join in singing the opening hymn, which is number 1020 from the Teal hymnal, Wo Ya Ya. Please join in the affirmation of this church, found in the order of service and here on the screens. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. You may be seated. And Sarah Burrell-Harrop will come up with not a story this morning, but a blessing. So, Sarah.
All right, so I would like to invite all the children and youth and anyone else who has a backpack or a purse that they would like to have blessed today. You may come up, but we'll also, if you didn't bring your backpack, take a moment to imagine that it's here with you so that it can also be blessed. All right. All right, here we come. Yeah. And then here's Naomi even brought her siblings' backpacks. This is exciting. And while we're bringing the purses and the backpacks and thinking of our backpacks in spirit, all right, woo. So you heard Reverend Laura talk about trust. What does trust mean to y'all? Feeling comfortable with sharing. Being happy when somebody's around. So that's like one person. How about in a group? How do you know that you feel comfortable or that you feel trust in a group? You can borrow things. This is, yeah? And Naomi feels like she's trusted because someone let them borrow. So it's mutual. It's not just one person. It's mutual between more than one party. Yeah. So this community that we have here is a community that's built on trust. And so we hope that you'll trust us and we trust you. Have y'all begun your classes yet? How do you feel about those groups? So one of our, Ash said that he has begun his classes. How do you feel about those groups that you're in? It's 8th grade. Who remembers? Turn around and see. Who remembers 8th grade? Anybody back there? So let's look at all those folks that you can confide in about 8th grade. What about you? Oh, so Naomi says that she's in 3rd grade and she's been with a friend for a long time. The friend is in the grade with her, so she feels pretty safe. Yeah. So now this is a time, as we were talking about, of new beginnings. The congregational year is starting, and then for y'all, children and youth, you're going to school, and y'all parents and grandparents and guardians are sending kids to school or starting your new curriculums if you're teaching your kids at home. So this is a good time to kind of commit to who matters to you. And so when we start new things, we want to have a community that you know, that knows you, that can trust you, you can talk to each other, and you know that it's for you, that you're meant to be here. And so that is why we do a ritual, because that ritual is like an outward sign of an inner promise to love each other. We are here for you. So as a community, we're going to bless these backpacks and these purses and the book, and I'll use words from the Reverend Maureen Killoran. And if you don't mind, I'm going to stand up because we're blessing for everyone. Spirit of life and hope and love. For many of us, school started recently. Some of us are excited about new beginnings. We're eager to start a new school year or get a new classroom or even a new school. Some of us are homeschooled and we have new beginnings too. But it's not exactly in the same way. A new year means new subjects, new levels of things that we're going to be expected to do. Some of us, including the adults here, are excited about new beginnings. Holy Spirit, be with everyone who's looking forward to what lies ahead. Some of us are nervous about what's coming. Some of us are scared. And we try to be big and we try to be brave, but that's not always so easy. For some of us, school is a place where we really don't want to be. Spirit of life, be with everyone who's nervous about what lies ahead or where we are. May each person's backpack be their friend, reminding you that you're unique and special and very okay. May your backpack hold special things to help you remember how strong you are, and remind you of all these people. You can look behind and see all these people who believe in you and who will love you always. Holy Spirit, be with these young people and with the young at heart and our elders. Help them remember their values. Let their lives be guided by the principles of our shared faith. May this new year be for each one filled with fun, adventures, and special joys. And may love be with you this day and every day. May you always know that here in this congregation, you're in the hands of friends. So I have tokens. I almost forgot the gifts. And so they're pretty much exactly the same. And you can put one, you'll need to take 3, Naomi, one for each of your brothers. And then we have some more purses and backpacks that have been blessed over here. So y'all, there's one for everyone, and you can take it home. So I'll invite the adults who brought their purses and backpacks to come and pick them up and take a gift. Take one of the gifts. Absolutely. So there was a question of whether or not that there's a person who's not here who would appreciate receiving one of these tokens, again, an outward sign of the inward trust of the group, and you are most welcome to do that.
As we leave this friendly This religious community exists by its mission as a fire exists by burning. But a fire cannot burn without fuel. And it is the time, the energy, the imagination, the vision, the creativity, the compassion, the love, and the financial support of the members and friends of this community that fuels our mission to nurture and sustain a welcoming, inclusive, and diverse liberal religious community that transforms lives and serves the world. Your support, the free and generous support of each and every member and friend of this community, is what fuels this community and its mission. And without your support, the flame of justice, community, and love cannot burn brightly to warm ourselves and to be a beacon in a world threatened by division and fear. The morning offering will now be given and received in the spirit of grateful fellowship.
The reading is from Learning to Trust by Peter Morales. It is from an editorial that he wrote, and it appeared in the Unitarian Universalist World magazine in October of 2015. We talk a lot about the centrality of covenant in our faith, about how we are united in covenant rather than by a creed. A covenant is a mutual promise, a mutual commitment. Trust makes covenant possible. I cannot enter into a covenant with someone I do not trust. Where trust is strong, a covenant is durable. Where trust is weak, words of a covenant mean little. Yet, there is a strong tradition of distrust in our movement. We were born in rebellion against oppressive religious and civil authorities who had betrayed trust. We have inherited a strong anti-authoritarian streak. Sometimes that is good. Often it isn't. I have seen way too many UU meetings where we process things to death and think we have to involve everybody and her dog before making a decision. The result is timidity and lost opportunity. Learning to earn one another's trust and to empower one another is ultimately a spiritual practice. I can only trust you if I let go of some control. I can only trust you if I stop insisting on doing everything my way. We can only earn each other's trust if we take time to know one another. Trust has to grow over a period of time. It has to be nurtured. Trust is what love looks like when it has matured, when love has deepened, when love aspires to a common purpose. Please rise now in body or in spirit and join in singing hymn number 86 from the gray hymnal, Blessed Spirit of My Life.
We honor our time together with the shared stories and news from the congregation. Each week there is a journal outside the entrance to the sanctuary where you can write a message of memory or hope. Also, at any time during our service, you are welcome to come forward and light a candle in our meditation center here at the side of the chancel. We are also reminded of the many people in the world who are burdened by sickness, hunger, and pain. by sorrow and anxiety, by violence and loss. We pause this morning to share our concern and care for these people, and also for those closer to home about whom we are concerned. We have a request here that we keep Carissa Birch in your thoughts. She is in the hospital and is recovering from seizures and a stroke. May the warmth of this community extend to all who are rejoicing or hurting in our wider world. The stories that live in this community are cherished even when unshared, as we keep one another in mind during the coming week.
Please join me in the spirit of meditation. If you want to, close your eyes or just close them slightly, however you are comfortable. Just take a moment, noticing the breath and letting go of everything you have carried in here with you this morning, becoming centered in this moment now. I bring you a poem this morning for your meditation time, listening to the words, breathing in, breathing out, seeing, listening, savoring these words. Trust by Thomas R. Smith. It's like so many other things in life to which you must say no or yes. So you take your car to the new mechanic. Sometimes the best thing to do is trust. The package left with the disreputable-looking clerk, the check gulped by the night deposit, the envelope passed by dozens of strangers, all show up at their intended destinations. The theft that could have happened doesn't. Wind finally gets where it was going, through the snowy trees, and the river, even when frozen, arrives at the right place. And sometimes you sense how faithfully your life is delivered, even though you can't read the address. Take a moment, sitting together in shared silence. In an editorial written in October of 2012, Reverend Peter Morales, who was at the time the president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, acknowledged the role of trust in our spiritual lives. He also acknowledged the centrality of covenant to our faith when he wrote, "Where trust is weak, words of a covenant mean little. Yet there is a strong tradition of distrust in our movement. We were born in rebellion against oppressive religious and civil authorities who have betrayed trust. We have inherited a strong anti-authoritarian streak." He reminded us that trust can be learned and earned. He concluded that trust is what love looks like when it has matured, when love has deepened, when love aspires to a common purpose. 4.5 years after he wrote those words, he resigned from the presidency amidst controversy and disappointment. Our association's hiring practices were under scrutiny. The lack of diversity in senior leadership positions was questioned. Reverend Morales responded to the controversy in a way that, in his own words, caused people to lose their trust in him. So he resigned. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism, visiting or listening online for the first time, this may feel too much like inside baseball to you. Too much detail about the inner workings of our faith that is only interesting to insiders. You don't need to understand the inner workings of a hiring controversy that happened 5 years ago. Here's all you need to know. 1, covenant is central to our faith. And 2, trust in institutions in general is declining. Our religion is not exempt from this decline. Rachel Botsman writes and researches about how technology is transforming trust and what this means for life, work, and how we do business. She says there are hundreds of definitions of trust, and most can be reduced to some kind of risk assessment of how likely it is that things will go right. What's missing in this definition is the human capacity for connection, she says. So, she defines trust a little differently. She defines trust as a confident relationship to the unknown. A confident relationship to the unknown. It is interesting to note that the Hebrew word for faith is also their word for trust. As members of a religion, we can take note that faith and trust are the same. Faith is a confident relationship to the unknown. Yet, we struggle to have a confident relationship to the unknown. Our religion was born in rebellion. It is hard for us to trust. In Rachel Botsman's TED Talk, she asks her audience how many of them participate in a relationship of trust with services run by technology. She says, please raise your hand if you have ever been a host or a guest on Airbnb. So we can play along with her. We can play along with her game. So raise your hand if you've been a host or a guest on Airbnb. Yeah. Okay. And then now raise your hand if you have ever used Uber or Lyft. Yeah. Okay. Good. She also asked if you've ever used an internet dating site. Okay. That's it. Jump in. She gives these as examples of how technology is creating ways for us to trust unknown people, companies, and ideas. Yet, at the same time, she says, trust in institutions, banks, governments, and even churches is collapsing. This trust isn't collapsing just because people are behaving in untrustworthy ways. This trust is collapsing because institutional trust wasn't built for the digital age. There is a pattern that Botsman discovered that she calls climbing the trust stack. First, you trust the idea. First, you trust the idea that staying in someone's home is safe, perhaps less expensive, and possibly more convenient than staying in a hotel. The second level is trusting the platform, that if something goes wrong, Airbnb will enforce their policies for complaints and refunds. Yes? Yeah. The third level, she says, is about using little bits of information to decide whether the other person is trustworthy. We see their picture. They tell us why they love offering their apartment or a second home as a temporary rental to strangers. The first time we climb the trust stack feels risky, but it gets easier and our behaviors change. Then she looked at human history through the lens of trust, and she discovered that trust has evolved through stages that include local, institutional, and what we are entering now, distributed. Until about the mid-1800s, we lived within proximity of each other. Trust was built by reputation. It was local and based on the community holding each other accountable. In the mid-19th century, people moved to large cities. Local contacts were replaced by large corporations. We started to place our trust in legal contracts, regulations, and insurance. Trust became institutional and contractual. As we lose trust in our institutions and our leaders, trust will once again be distributed among people. It will be relationship-based rather than top-down. Why? Because when you climb into the back seat of an Uber or a Lyft, they are rating you just as much as you are rating them. When you rent from an Airbnb host, they are rating you in the same way you are expected to rate them. Trust is developed based on the relationship that builds over time between multiple providers with multiple users. I feel good about climbing into a car with a 5-star rated driver, and they feel good about picking me up because other drivers have rated me as trustworthy. As a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association, this church covenants with all the other member congregations to embrace the principles and the pluralism of our faith. And so here is a quote about how we do that, and it's straight out of our association's bylaws. As free congregations, we enter into this covenant, promising to one another our mutual trust and support. You recite a covenant here every Sunday with your affirmation, promising to dwell together in peace, seek knowledge in freedom, and to serve others in community. Trust is implied rather than explicitly mentioned. It is difficult to enter into a covenant with each other unless we trust each other. Unitarian Universalist minister Reverend Tom Owen Toll, one of my friends from California, writes this about trust. Many therapists would claim, and I would agree, he says, that the basic task of all religion is to reaffirm the first relationship of trust between parent and child, namely, the original assurance that somebody is present for and tied with me, without whom I cannot live. Now, I know from my many years of listening as a minister and as a chaplain that often this first relationship of trust between parent and child is damaged. Many of us did not receive the original assurance that somebody is present for and tied with us. In addition, many come to our congregations damaged by religions that didn't understand their role to reaffirm trust. When trust is broken, when the first relationship of trust between parent and child is damaged, trust can be relearned. And that is also the task of religion. When we promise to each other our mutual trust and support, we learn to take risks. We develop a confident relationship to the unknown. Author and researcher Brené Brown likes the following definition of trust and distrust because it matches what emerges from her research. And she quotes here business consultant Charles Feltman, who defines trust as choosing to risk making something you value vulnerable to another person's actions. He defines mistrust as a general assessment that what is important to me is not safe with this person in this situation, or maybe any situation. She tells the story of her daughter, a third grader at the time, coming home from school and collapsing in tears when friends she had confided in broke a promise of privacy. The commotion of teasing and shaming they caused in the classroom got so bad that the teacher removed marbles from the good behavior jar. Brown's daughter came home determined to never trust again. At first, knowing how cruel life can sometimes be, Brown's mothering instincts kick in, and she wants to agree with her daughter's need to close out the possibility of all future hurt. Instead, she tells her, trust is like a marble jar. You share those hard stories and those hard things with friends who, over time, you've filled up their marble jar. They've done thing after thing after thing so that you know you can trust them. Brown's research supported her metaphor. Trust is built in very small moments. Trust can also be undone in very small moments. The purpose of a covenant is not to punish or to point out when people are wrong. The purpose of a covenant is to bind us in a way of being that we can be called to or called back to when we transgress. We can refill our marble jars with very small moments, even when life itself is draining us of trust. When I became a Unitarian Universalist more than 20 years ago, the close friend who had invited me to the church was no longer speaking to me. Eventually, we reconciled, listening intently to each other's pain. Each of us had come out of damaged parent-child relationships. Each of us needed religious community in which to relearn trust. Another time I found out that a member of my covenant group had broken confidentiality and had spoken cruelly about me to someone outside the church, who I just happened to know, and he didn't know that I knew. The situation was made more complicated by the fact that they had already left the church. I could not speak directly to them because they were no longer a member of the church community. Yet for me, the covenant had been broken. So I needed to do my own inner work. I needed to forgive both myself and the one who had hurt me, cleaning up the mess in the private recesses of my own heart. Church life has offered up other broken promises, and every time I am called to appreciate the moments that do teach me how to trust. I am also called to clean up the messes I have made and come back to the covenant, the mutual promise we make to each other as a people of faith. We do talk a lot about the centrality of covenant in our faith, how we are united by a mutual promise rather than by a common belief. The last few years have been challenging. The pandemic, political and social chaos, the growing climate crisis. No wonder we have lost trust in our institutions. It takes a certain spiritual maturity to have a confident relationship to the unknown. It takes a certain spiritual maturity to remain in an institution where you are asked to risk making something you value vulnerable to another person's actions. If the basic task of all religion is to reaffirm the first relationship of trust between parent and child, then it is also the basic task of all religion to heal when trust is broken. We can learn to trust. This is our promise to ourselves and to each other. Thus do we covenant with each other. May it be so, and amen. Please rise now in body or in spirit and join in singing hymn number 354 from the gray hymnal, We Laugh, We Cry.
Running We extinguish this chalice flame, daring to carry forward the vision of this free faith that freedom, reason, and justice will one day prevail in this nation and across the earth.
Go from this place, seeking those moments that build trust, seeing how in your life you can create moments with each other here in this, our beloved religion. Where are those times you can learn and relearn trust? Go in peace, blessed be, and amen. And many thanks to all who made the worship service possible this morning, to our musician, all the tech people, to Michael. Many, many thanks. Please join us now for coffee and conversation.